My name is Johannes Knutsson. I'm a professor of police research. I've been asked to say a couple of words about problem-oriented policing. Problem-oriented policing is a philosophy of how for the police to leave the reactive, normal way of acting and enter a more preventive approach, proactive. Actually, when you conduct problem-oriented policing, you work according to some kind of action research model. You start with a problem, you have got some kind of initial definition, but in order to carry out a project, you need to go into the details. That's called scanning, where you specify, define, and describe the problems. You go into the depth. When you've done that, you start to figure out what is it that caused the problem to be here and the way it's expressed. And so it's a question of trying to figure out what is it that drives the problem, and that is the analysis stage. Next is to try to figure out how to respond. What can we do about this? And to figure out who can affect it, who is the problem owner. And that also points to the simplification of this SARA model. That response consists of actually of two different stages. One is to find out what to do, and the other one is, shall we say, a political process, how to find those that can affect them and make them do it. And then finally, did it work, the assessment. And when the whole idea is seducingly simple. SARA is easy to sort of, yes, that sounds beautiful. But it's a very complex process when you actually go into it. On the right-hand side, you have two different ways of conducting it. The instrumental mode, which often is done when you just tell the police, now you should perform problem-oriented policing. So shallow analysis, and often they have figured out some kind of measure that they want to implement. And then you've got the conceptual mode, where you start with a strong analysis and really go into the depth. And it's often an iterative process. You find out, I know too little, I need to know more. You go back and start all over again. And often check hypothesis. Is it because of this that we do have this problem? Yes, no. And when you are satisfied, you go further. And it also means that you have the capacity to conduct the most difficult technical part of it, the assessment, to make a thorough evaluation. Further down on this picture, you've got different modes of organizing the practicing of POP. The first, number A, is what usually has happened. That you have some kind of message from high up, from the politicians. We want crime prevention, we want problem-oriented policing. Then you got an administrator, the chief of police or whatever, who points out and gives the order to some police officers, often community police officers. You are now going to work with problem-oriented policing. Start. And then you've got the next, the B model, where you've got an analyst who has the competence to make analysis, who knows about crime prevention, who is trained, and who can support. And the analyst, he is not responsible to the organization, and his identity and his orientation is towards academia, because they are the ones who can make judgment about the quality of what he does, and he can also go to them if he has problem to ask them for advice. And then we've got the third model, which is what Herman Goldstein originally suggested, that the police ought to also include academically trained persons. They should have cooperation with academia in order to get stronger analytic performance on the whole. So you have an analyst within the organization. This means that you have a sustainable organization. You don't have an analyst who just is there for a short while. POP, I'm an award judge, so what I can see now during the last few years is that the quality in the projects now, at least those who ends up as submissions to the Herman Goldstein Award, that the quality has increased. And the reason is simple. You now, especially in the UK, you've got excellent crime analysts, and they are used by the police. They cooperate with the police, which means that you get projects which are according to the standard to make them really excellent. And I know that POP works. But for instance, in Sweden, when it was implemented in the mid-90s, it was one of the worst implementation failures I've ever seen. But that's not just common for Sweden. You've seen it in Norway, Denmark, US, UK. But it seems to be taking on now. And the precondition is you need a competence that normally doesn't exist within the police. Well, the reason is that there hasn't been any genuine understanding of what problem-oriented policing really is, the complexity of it. And you do have administrators, chiefs of police, who obey to the political message, we shall have this, okay, and then they instruct their officers to do it, with no real genuine understanding of what it takes. To get this competence, it isn't that simple. You need to have trained analysts, and they are not on-the-shelf product. In the UK, I've been teaching about 400 analysts. I've been part of it, and after a couple of years, you can see the effects of it. But this takes time. But as long as there is no realization that you need this competence, you will end up with this shallow implementation, and then it's considered the problem-oriented policing. It didn't work. Look here, this is our experience. But they have never practiced it.
I just want to comment on what the professor was talking about. I am a practitioner in problem-oriented policing. My agency is heavily involved in it. This is my second agency. And I believe that where police agencies fall or fail is in the assessment part, in the analysis part, because they don't do enough analysis, and in the assessment part. We're good at seeing a problem, applying a solution, but we're not good at the analysis. My agency, I did hire a civilian professional crime analyst because the crime analysis is absolutely critical to the process of the SARA model. I agree that it cannot be politically driven. It has to be, and if there is a police chief that wants to apply it, you have to absolutely believe in it. You cannot just do it because somebody ordered you to do it. And then you have to sell the entire philosophy to the organization, so that from the bottom of the organization to the top of the organization, it's applied. You cannot also just apply it to a segment in the patrol division or in administration or in investigative services. It has to be department-wide. I've seen it work. I'm a believer of it, and we continue to apply it in everything that we do, both criminal and just societal issues that we have to deal with.
I absolutely agree to one of your comments, namely the importance of the chief that he is heavily into it. I've practiced POP in order to check it out and to show that it really works. And the precondition was that the commissioner was in for it wholeheartedly. And he put a very strong message into his organization because he put himself as a chairperson in the reference group. And that was a very strong message to his organization. You are going to assist, you are going to accept what's going on. If you don't, you will have to do with me. And I could see that there was resistance, but they didn't dare go against their commissioner. And that was one of the things that made this a success.